1776 AD, 5670 AM. One of the most fascinating years in the Anno Domini calendrix. On May the 1st, the Illuminati is officially begun, a wide-scale plan for a cabal of international bankers to divide and conquer the European and, by extension, the world's countries by financing both sides of major conflicts and wars that they themselves would influence and profit from, growing rich off the interest from opposing fronts. Mayer Amschel Rothschild has control of the Illuminati through Adam Weishaupt. Weishaupt publicised the beginning of the Bavarian Illuminati in this year, a premeditated shallow facade of the true order of the Illumined Ones. He was a professor of canon law at Ingolstadt University in Germany, as well as a Jesuit priest who believed in the return of Luciferian society. His chapter was specifically started with the deceptive intent to have it publicly destroyed to distract the public into believing that the order itself was no more. The Illuminati structure is based off of 13 royal families, who all trace their lineages back several centuries. Families that have taken an oath for the Antichrist to sit on his throne. George Washington, a leading Mason in the American colonies, publicly warned the new Americans about the existence of Illuminati agents of this subversive movement later, when he is made President of the United States. Though the American Revolutionary War began a year earlier, the Founding Fathers of the United States signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776, officially creating the United States of America. The 13 colonies united together in war, becoming 13 states of the most powerful nation this world has ever experienced. The British General Howe attacked New York City with more than 30,000 troops with German auxiliaries on July the 2nd, capturing Long Island and driving away George Washington's tired and underfed army. The British deserter John Paul Jones captained the very first American warship, the Alfred, flying the Grand Union flag. After attacking Nassau, he was appointed over the Providence in May, and he joined the official Continental Navy, destroying British fisheries in Nova Scotia and capturing 16 British prize ships, including the British whaler Britannia. Several heavy warships fell to the famous John Paul Jones. The nations of Europe were in awe of the news passing over the Atlantic from North America. George Washington literally stalemated the most powerful army in the modern world, with an unprofessional army who lacked necessary winter gear, clothes, were always short of food and ammunition, and were held together more by a strong belief rather than a pressing need. H. G. Wells wrote, quote, "The growth of the United States is a progress that has no precedent in the world's history. It is a new kind of occurrence. Such a community could not have come into existence before. This great community of the United States is an altogether new thing in history. There have been great empires before with populations exceeding 100 million, but these were associations of divergent peoples. There has never been one single people on this scale before," unquote. By the year's end, the Continental Congress had commissioned 13,000 privateers, many formerly pirates, to harass and attack all British shipping. With these 175 ships and about 2,000 cannons, the privateers succeeded in sinking or capturing 559 English vessels, the confiscated goods sent to George Washington's army. There are two fundamental characteristics about the people who founded the United States. They were Anglo-Saxons, or more properly described, they were Anglo-Celtic. These were a people of Germanic, Celtic and Gallic stock, and they were a people unified in their faith, a belief in a future resurrection, in a saviour, in divine redemption obtainable through belief, and a modification of personal behaviour. This Christianity that led to the founding of the United States was in fact a very revival of ancient Israelite faith. Europe was peopled by waves of migrations from the Baltic and Mediterranean that are shown clearly in Chronicon 1 to have all come from Samaria, the capital of ancient Israel in Lower Syria, which was also the origin of Christianity in Galilee. In the 7th and 6th centuries BC, these Israelite migrants were known to the other nations of the Near East and Aegean by their city of origin, Samaria, for they were universally known as Cimmerians. The culture that founded the United States was a spiritual people, the Bible being found in nearly every cottage and house in the 13 colonies. Throughout the colonies, Benjamin Franklin's 13 virtues were widely popularised and aspired to by the youth of the new nation. It was the dream of Thomas Jefferson and other founders of the nation to establish an Anglo-Saxon Renaissance. It was these men who discovered that the long history of Anglo-Saxon common law was remarkably similar to those of the ancient Israelites. The original seal of the United States was to depict on one side the Israelites following God's pillar of fire out of Egypt, and on the obverse were to be depicted the Anglo-Saxon leaders Hengist and Horsa. These men were Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin. The American Revolution was in all respects also a Christian revolution. The timing of the start of the United States links it with ancient Israel's start of migration. Israel was predicted to depart from the land and travel across the earth. In the Old Testament, we find that Israel would be, quote, a nation and a company of nations, that Abraham's seed shall be as numerous as the sands of the sea, and shall spread across to the west, and to the east, to the north, and to the south. Isaiah the prophet wrote that the outcasts of Israel would be spread across the face of the earth, as would be the dispersed of Judah. This distinguishing the Israelites from the Jews. Isaiah said that the Israelites would be scattered to the ends of the earth, and that in this way God would increase the people. Zechariah wrote that the descendants of Israelites would remember God in far countries. The psalmist wrote that Israel was to receive the uttermost parts of the earth for a possession. Even the apostles in the New Testament books addressed their letters to Israelites who were scattered abroad. It was prophesied that in the course of their migrations the Israelites would forget who they were. Isaiah wrote, quote, for the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. I will bring the blind by a way they know not. I will lead them on paths they have not known. Unquote. The book of Romans declares that blindness in part has happened to Israel. The tribe of adoption was Joseph's, carried through the blessings of Jacob to his sons Ephraim and Manasseh. These two patriarchs were prophesied to have descendants that would establish the mightiest Israelite empires this world would ever know. And these were the British Empire, Manasseh, and the United States, Ephraim. Manasseh means forgetful, and Ephraim means doubly fruitful. The Old Testament prophets declared that the Israelites would migrate to the ends of the earth, to the isles that are afar off, and to the island and coast to the far north and to the west, even to the ends of the earth. The United States as Ephraim was prophesied by Moses, quote, his glory is like the firstling calf of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, unquote. In the mindset of antiquity, the ends of the earth is where the sun set, and when the biblical authors make this statement, they are always referring to the West. The unicorn is one of the primary heraldic motifs of Great Britain or England, the land of the Angles. The old Hebrew word for calf, firstling, was Engel. The unicorn was the ancient crest of the kings of Israel. The Americans inherited a vast continental land that was only sparsely populated with warring tribes of Indians. The American expansion into the West also is without historical precedent. For the Anglo-Celts led the march, but were quickly followed by millions of other Europeans, also all descended from the 13 tribes of Israel. In the year 745 BC, the 10 tribes were forcibly deported out of Israel by the Assyrians, an event well documented in biblical and secular history and verified extensively in the archaeological records as shown in CHRONICON 1. 745 BC began the Israelite migrations and the fulfillment of hundreds of biblical prophecies, beginning a 25-20-year countdown, or 360 times 7 years, to the birth of the United States of America in 1776 AD. The sum of 2520 is prominent in Hebrew prophetic literature. The Puritans landed at Plymouth Rock in 1620 AD, exactly 156 years prior, or 144 times 13 months before 1776. The 13 colonies shadow the 13 tribes of Israel, but are themselves in North America foreshadowed by the 13 clans of the Maya who came from North America. The United States was founded 1300 years after the fall of Rome in 476 AD, which fell to the German ancestors of the Anglo-Saxons, the forefathers of the English. The USA adopted Latin as the language of the courts, the scientific and medical vernaculars, and even copied much of its system of government in the form of republicanism. It is not coincidence but providence that in 1776, Edward Gibbon, the famed English historian, published his epic Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, a masterpiece of literature and history unrivalled today in several volumes. Of further significance is that Adam Smith, in this same year of 1776, published his Wealth of Nations, long considered the Bible of international commerce, a text that taught the governments of the world the benefits of commercialism and capitalism in international trade. Lastly, the Great Seal of the United States would soon be designed and be that of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, which stands at a geometrical height of 58.14 pyramid inches. The actual height is 54.48 inches, however. Once the chief cornerstone is placed upon the flat apex of the structure, the intended height is 58.14. By intended is meant fulfilled. The year 1776 is precisely 58.14 years of the orbital chronology begun in 4039 BC, when our planet adopted its present orbit around the Sun and Homo sapiens sapiens was directly created by the Anunnaki, CHRONICON 1. 1776 AD is also 4590 Anno Pyramid, 4590 years after the completion of the Great Pyramid in 2815 BC, 1080 AM, 4590 being 153 times 30. The sum of 153 in biblical gematria means sons of God, and the New Testament records associate it with Christianity. 1. Synagogue of Satan. 2. Behold a pale horse. 3. Phenomenal world. 4. Uncommon sense. 5. A Patriot's History of the United States. 6. Pirates and the Lost Templar Fleet. 7. A Short History of the World. 9. Celtic Myths and Legends. 12. The 5,000-Year Leap. 14. Tracing our ancestors. 15. The lost language of symbolism. 16. Human accomplishment.